Check. What's happening? It's Thursday night, October 10th, 2024. It's the Cycleshack. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Ivan Rodriguez. I just wanted to jump on and do a quick podcast. Been watching a lot of YouTube content. Been watching a lot of stuff. This is not your average podcast. Audio's conking out on me here. It's my headphones. Technical difficulties as always, folks. So this isn't your average podcast. I just jumped on to just flap my gums a little bit because there's a lot of content I'm watching on TV. I'm seeing that bothers the hell out of me. And this is the platform where I express myself, right? So first off, check us out at the Cycleshack podcast at gmail.com. Send me your questions, comments, whatever you want, show topics, or check us out at the Cycleshack podcast on Facebook and on Instagram. The official Cycleshack podcast, or official Cycleshack podcast, not the. You can leave the out. All right. Anyway, moving on. So it just kicks my ass on how this is kind of repetitive, and it's kind of the same story you hear with people saying the same shit over and over again with the politics and the bullshit that's going on with the election. I'm not partial to any side. I'm not a politician. I'm not into politics. I don't understand politics, etc. Yada, yada, yada. So I could care less on either side. That's just the way I feel. What kills me as a country, as a people, is that we are still blinded by watching Washington make us, first off, by watching Washington make us turn against each other the way we do as a people, which is the main objective, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever it is. Don't fall for that line of crap that they're for the people. They are not in it for the people. They are in it for a reason. If it's not to line their pockets now, it's to line their pockets later. It's just the way today's politics works. I hate to say it. That's just the way it is. I hope I'm still recording because my thing went on complete sleep mode. Yes, I'm still recording. All right, good deal. So if you are not tuned into that and you fall for it, shame on you. Not everybody's going to see it, but pay attention. Okay? How can they be that desperate to shove someone like the vice president in our face after she's been silent for the past 3 years with all the dumb rhetoric she's spewing out on talk shows, podcasts, interviews, etc.? That's the best they can come up with. And it's proof of the theory because they just spoon feed her to us to accept it. And there's no other candidates. So that's proof that they are pushing a mission. Okay, they have an end game. They have a narrative. And then when it's all said and done and this election is over and we're done fighting against each other as a people, then they go back behind closed doors and wheel and deal and line each other's pockets, take care of each other's interests, etc., etc., etc. Wake up, folks. It's the same crap. It's evolving as the years go by. I wish I was born in the 1950s. You know, it was just it looks like it was a better time to live. I feel bad and feel sorry for my young ones when they get older. When they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, I'm going to feel bad for the grandkids. The world is changing, and it's not changing in the right direction. We're running cars on batteries and being told this is the wave of the future, and it's not. We're turning against each other as a society because one side, Republican or Democrat, has an opinion, and you don't agree with those politics, and you on a little local level here in towns and cities. In diners, in coffee shops, if that coffee shop still exists, a Starbucks. You guys are all fighting against each other because of what the news is telling you somebody's views are. He said this. He's a racist. She's an airhead. She's a racist because she said he said this. Well, who told you that was said? Oh, it's facts. How is it facts? Because it was said on Fox News, because it was said on CNN. It's proven time and time again that all that is BS. You cannot, there is not one media outlet that is believable anymore. You must take all the bullshit that you hear, digest it and make sense of it yourself and see if it makes sense. That's what you should do. I got people in my family that, because they're minority and they've always voted Democrat, they vote Democrat. I stick to my guns. Democrats have always been for the people. My grandmother was a Democrat. My mother was a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat. Like, if it's something that you pass down, that's why I can't stand politics. The way the government influence on the media is, from everything from memes on social media. Social media is no different than the news now. Social media is a broad spectrum for people to communicate on and where people get influence. So they will go ahead and they will put garbage on there. How many times have you not scrolled through TikTok and seen some guy in an AI voice that sounds like this and says China is controlling us in mass, whatever the fuck they're saying. Excuse my French. I'm pissed. And you go and you believe that, or your teenager in high school believes that and goes around and spews that nonsense around, all because it was said on TikTok or it was said on Instagram, because some robotic AI thing creates it and it's generated from a political interest to sway a thought. It's ridiculous. You got to see past that, folks. Take both sides, listen to it, and make an informed decision based on what you hear. Don't fall for every piece of news as if it is gospel truth. You will be let down every single time. It's crazy how it's influencing our youth big time. I want to hit it with internet warfare, right? There is an internet digital warfare going on, and it has to do with exactly what I'm describing. There are companies that are creating memes that have political interests that are trying to get something passed. So they have their tech people creating this stuff to spew it on social media. It's no different than the propaganda commercials you hear saying, Donald Trump said that he is blah, 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 paid for by people for Kamala Harris. It's no different than them commercials. It's people just putting shit out there to get an agenda out. And it's companies that are doing it because they have some kind of financial interest in something. And they just have a tech company or have an in-house tech company going out and doing shit like that. Some kids see that. Who taught me that? My son. My eldest son taught me that, who's very computer savvy. Says, nah, it's a bot. It's a robot. I can trace back to see that this was created by a company and they're trying to sway people. It's almost like advertising. You want to say this so that people think this is true and they go out and XYZ. And that's what they're doing to the 10th power with everything. Instagram, Facebook, all those platforms, TikTok are the top 3. That's what's going on. They're hitting the social media hard because it's attacking the youth with all the memes and the fancy slogans, all that BS coming out. That's all part of the internet digital warfare. And that's a war that we are losing. All right. It's sad because You see all the crap going on in the news with protests for things that by college students, by people who are sympathizing with one side or another, will leave parties or names or race and all that out of that because it's not important. I'm sure you guys get what I'm saying. But when people go and protest the freedom of a certain country that's being attacked or whatever the case may be, when they know nothing of that country, they've never been there, they're just going by what they hear on CNN, on Fox News, on News 12, Channel 7, ABC News, NBC4 News. They go by all that that's possibly not fact-checked, and they're believing a lot of it. And they're making a decision. They think they're making an informed decision. And they're becoming sympathizers to a cause that they know nothing about. And it's sad to see that. It's one thing to have an opinion, but it's another thing to protest and then get involved in violent protests. Because, again, it's hitting our youth. It's hitting our youth in our colleges. They're becoming violent. There have been violent attacks in colleges all around the country because of the shit being spewed out on social media, swaying these college students, making them become sympathizers to one cause or another. Religions and races that they really know nothing about, but they are sympathizing and think they're making a difference by sympathizing with that side. Now, I don't know. Is that freedom of expression? Maybe. You're free to do whatever you want in that aspect. But when it comes to violence, there's no excuse. There is no excuse. I am not a believer of you have to hit the streets and crack some heads in order to be heard. Not a 100% firm believer on that. It's the haves versus the have-nots. The have-nots in that case will lose all the time. It's happened time and time and time again. We have to, as a people, see things for what they are and rationalize. You're going to have to hear the BS that's on the news. You got no choice. But you're going to have to take it and digest it and make sense of it. Keep an open mind, open heart. And make a sense and make a decision that benefits you the right way and benefits your family. You don't see that a lot nowadays. I wrote down a bunch of shit. I don't even know. I mean, I wrote it down weeks ago because it's, I stopped watching the news, but every once in a while you catch stuff on YouTube, etc. Foreign entities are doing the same thing, right? So it's one thing that we're getting the bullshit spewed internally by U.S. companies or U.S. corporate interests, right? Attacking kids on social media to believe things or to try different things or whatever the case may be. But you also have foreign entities doing the same shit. Okay? You got Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Russia, supposedly that, again, these tech companies that are overseas or little groups that know how that are techie. And they start building and creating these memes. I mean, again, it's not hard to do that. And create all these lies using 25, 30-second videos on lies and BS. And just post it over TikTok, post it over Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. And all that gets absorbed by youth around the world. More importantly, more selfishly importantly, the youth of here, the U.S. And, again, when the mind is young and they're absorbing stuff like that, you hope that they're educated enough to, again, make an informed decision. There's that word again, right? An informed decision. But sometimes today's youth is not, I won't say not that bright. They're naive to that stuff. Is more proper to say, right? What are we doing as a people to stop that shit? the first thing I do is I look at this stuff all the time, and I will actually forward it to my children. And then I'll have a conversation with them and bring it up and say, hey, did you see that little video that I sent you about XYZ? Oh, yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Why'd you send me that? Yeah, let's talk about that. I wanted to send that because, and start breaking shit down to them. To open their minds to realize, hey, that's a video. It's out there, but just because it's a video and it's someone narrating it as if it's truth doesn't mean it's true. If you do your research, you'll see that that is incorrect. I do that all the time to my young ones, my two young ones. And believe me, it opens their minds. You would think they'd get tired of it. At first, they were getting tired of it, like, oh, here goes Dad giving us a speech and a lecture again. But in the end, I've seen that they pay attention to it. And now they can pretty much spot bullshit when they get on the internet. They can easily see it. And they're researching things more. It's funny because I'm here flapping my gums about this shit. I'm getting texts and I'm getting little messages on people sending videos of Northern Lights. Apparently tonight you can see the Northern Lights in New York State from certain areas, certain mountain ranges, or even from your house. I know I went out to the front of my house. I can't see jack. But there are people sending in photos to like the Ring app, to the neighborhood Ring app and all that. So it's cool to see, but yeah. It's just crazy. And that's all I had to come on and say. Quick podcast to spew that. And it's just crazy to watch what's going on in politics today. Again, it's got nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. I just think that government in itself is getting desperate. They're getting very, very desperate in Washington. And I think Washington needs they need to clean house. Who are you going to get to replace today's politicians? I don't know, but this stuff's got to end. Washington is not for the people. They're not. You see everything from like big pharma. If something is big money, the government's got to get their cut. There's an influence somewhere, and Big Brother's got to get their cut. You get taxed and charged out the ass for medicines. Okay? And it's ridiculous. What is it? I read this the other day in an article. This guy just saying in one of his paragraphs, if you think about it, you get taxed on your paycheck, X percentage, to then go out and make purchases and get taxed on top of those purchases. So you're taxed double, triple, quadruple times to then go out and buy groceries, and you're paying tax on that stuff. If you're able to do a decent grocery shopping nowadays, because shit's through the roof. So then at the end of the year, you probably wind up owing taxes again. Here's another racket that I find. I'm waiting to see how this turns up. So apparently, it's not in all 50 states, but in most of them. I think it's in 38 states already. There is what is called a multi-state tax. Now, I don't understand this completely, but I do understand that if I work in one state, or I live in one state, right? Well, I'll use me as an example, right? My job is a New York State-based company. However, the office that I'm reporting out of is a Connecticut-based office. So I'm a New York State resident paying taxes in New York State, but since I work 5 days a week and technically report out of an office of Connecticut, which my home office is not, it's still in New York, in another part of New York, but the position itself is a Connecticut-based position. I'm just running it from New York. I'm in management, And I have to pay a VIG to the state of Connecticut. Okay, that's understandable because I'm working a certain amount of hours times 5 days a week in the state of Connecticut. So the state of Connecticut has their handout. And I guess rightfully so, I pay a percentage to that. And I get an X amount that comes out of my paycheck for that. But they're telling me because I have to pay a multi-state tax, I am being monitored because my work state is Connecticut. So they're monitoring my ID badge. We have to swipe into our work locations for ID badges. I work in data center work, so I enter multiple data centers and office buildings throughout New York and Connecticut, but mostly New York because technically my home office is out of New York, even though my position is based out of Connecticut. So every ID card swipe, my security badge, when I swipe into an entry, that counts as working in that state for the day. Okay? So if I started out in New York, but I end in Connecticut, I get charged New York. If I started out in Connecticut, but go to New York, I get charged Connecticut. But I want to know how this works out. Because am I going to be charged again for having a Connecticut-based job, if you want to call it that, but entering multiple locations on the New York end when I live in New York and I'm already paying New York state tax on my paycheck? Am I going to get double dipped? That remains to be seen. I have no clue. I should really talk to my accountant, right? Thanks for listening. I'm Ivan Rodriguez. Check it out, the Cycleshack podcast at gmail.com. Questions, comments, photos, whatever you want. I talk about motorcycles. I talk about cars. I talk about anything I want to because it's my show. At the Cycleshack podcast on Facebook and on Instagram, official Cycleshack podcast. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll spew out something soon. Be safe. Talk to you.